Welcome to the PK Soul Show. Welcome to the PK Soul Show.
Greetings, everyone.
Hi.
Greetings, beloved. This is PK Social. I am one of your wonderful hosts, Tamara Sharice Pate. Tammy, you can call me.
And I am Amber Holloway.
And together we create PK Social. Now, PK, it's just an abbreviated version of Preacher's Kid. And we are very aware of the fact that we're missing 3 other PKs because there are 5 children in our family. But that's okay. We're going to spread the love, we're going to share the energy, and we're going to tell the world all about PKs without the other 3 for now. They will join us in the future. No one knows when. You just have to stay tuned in. But today's our first episode. My little sister, I am the older sister of the 2. We are the younger of 5. So we're the youngest of 5, actually. I am 8 years older than the baby girl. I was the baby. You got it. 8 years prior to her coming around. So life was great.
Here
then
we
it
go.
changed.
Here we go.
But I digress. So Amber, being the millennial that she is, asked me to participate in a podcast. This is so beyond my life and what I would do.
It's going to be great.
But because I love my little sister, I said, okay, I'm going to give it a try. Maybe it'll be interesting. I've done my research. I've watched a couple of them to just, I've heard a couple of them to see how they go. And it is interesting. And I said, well, what can we bring to the table? What can we share about for the world to know? In the words of Bernie Mac. Look here, America. Look here. We just want to share with America today.
Oh, God.
What's going on in the world as it relates to the Christian world, as it relates to the church world. Now, there's this TV show that's quite debatable. And it's entitled Greenleaf. Greenleaf is interesting to us as PKs, and we've been hooked since the first season. But we've been hooked for different reasons. So Amber's gonna probably want to share at this point.
Yeah.
What do you think
so
about
if you're
that?
not familiar with Greenleaf, it is a show that comes on the Oprah Winfrey Network on TV, and it's a drama based on a pastor, his wife, their children, and their ministry. It is controversial. The topics are controversial for the most part. When you're introduced, the first season, you learn, okay, there is a marriage that is suffering because of possible homosexuality. There is infidelity in the show.
The show does have a lot of factors that are just...
It sheds light on, I guess, issues that most families deal with, but it's interesting because, wait, this is supposed to be a ministry family or
Now, Amber said sheds light. This is where we kind of don't get along, y'all. I love the show. I think it's a good show, but I also think the show sheds a little shade on church life and ministry. So, to that extent...
to each his own.
And to that extent, we'll discuss further as we go along. But we picked the topic, or we picked the show Greenleaf to kind of vibe on and share our feedback about, because we've been in church literally our entire lives. Our dad's a pastor. I was born in 1981, and he was given the vision to start the church in 1981. He actually started the church with some charter members and a few other members. Back then, they were a part of another ministry, and they branched out and started Breath of Life. And so we've been in church literally since the inception. I grew up in it, and
I came.
Well, when Amber came, we were still in church. So, and we've been in the same church, and now we work in a church. So we've been here forever. So some of the aspects of Greenleaf, to me, aren't fair to churches, especially in relation to mega churches, because a mega church, believe it or not,
is unfair.
Well, first off, believe it or not, a mega church is classified as a ministry that has like 250 people minimum.
Well,
and
yeah,
to
that's
me,
not really a mega church.
and in my mind, that's not even mega. But And you never know. It could be 250 millionaires, which put them in a different tax bracket, and maybe that's what makes it a mega church. No clue. But it truly is. I feel like Greenleaf, for the most part, Greenleaf, as they try to share the love of Christ, and then they have a daughter that comes back who's basically she's kind of blowing the whistle on what's going on. And even though she's living in sin, she's still blowing the whistle on everybody else and their skeletons or their past. And
how is she living in sin?
Well, she's currently
on the first season.
Oh, on the first season, I don't know if I remember seeing it in the first season.
Yeah.
But I feel like the family understood, at least Lady Mae. She would make reference to starting trouble or starting confusion because she knew her daughter. Not necessarily recently, but she could have known what the girl did before she left. Quote unquote,
we don't know
Memphis.
what she did. Okay.
We don't know what she did. Well, I know now she's sleeping around unmarried, and she a staff minister. And I mean, what is that? What type of message are you sending your daughter if you're supposed to be a Christian in the church? And I'm not saying that everyone doesn't do it. Everybody has their past, especially PKs, what they did behind closed doors, what they tried to keep from their parents, and having the honor and the respect to know I'm not doing right, so I should keep this from my parents, which to other people makes them fake, makes them look hypocritical, whatever. But I mean, Grace is cool. She's not right though, but she's cool. She's just in what she does and in how she is.
Okay, we'll come back to that because I am Team Grace. So
I love Grace too.
Because yes, I do have a lot of different views on the show. I guess when I chimed in just then, I was just referring specifically to the comment of Grace is a hypocrite or Grace is living in sin, and I'm like, okay, maybe this season, I don't know if everyone is familiar with what's going on this season. This season, she's doing some things that she was not doing.
Okay, wait a minute. Grace slept with a guy that was engaged first season and broke up a whole engagement. Okay, yeah, I forgot.
Okay, I did forget about that.
But I'm like, that's what made me think. Like, Grace been wrong.
But I guess you said living in sin.
That's not living in sin. Like, I don't care if it's a mishap. Even if it's a mishap.
When you say living in sin, a lot of church people will probably relate that to, is she shacking? Grace isn't shacking. Grace isn't dating a married man
with
on
men.
That episode.
She's just sleeping with men and she's not married.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, let's not say she's sleeping with... Season 1, she did sleep with him once.
Okay. That makes it right.
I'm not saying it makes it right, but...
It's not continuous. So
the way you described it...
She fell in sin. She just backslid for a moment.
She backslid. Yes, she backslid. I don't
Okay.
think it's fair to say she's living in sin because she slept with that guy on the first season. But anyway, yes, I guess that would be a point that I would like to bring up in the show. How do we feel about Grace?
Well, Grace is just, to me, realistically, she is a typical Christian. Like, Christians slip, Christians have mishaps, Christians.
Now,
backslide.
I do agree. If she's a minister, then yes,
she's always been a minister. She was introduced as a part of. She was in the pulpit before she left.
She was, but then when she left, she was not ministering, right? Maybe we need to go back and review that. I thought when she left, she was no longer.
So she's just proving guys that she didn't do her homework because her homework was to go look at season 1. But okay, alrighty.
Okay, guys. Anyway, we're on season 3. But yes, when she left, she was raising her daughter, and she pretty much left the church. She left her family, and she left that. Yes, she was no longer a minister.
They never really explained.
They didn't explain
why
much about.
What do you think happened for her to leave? Like, just in what she's seen since she's been back, and in what's happening in the.
Well, we did learn at the end of season 1 why she left, because of Faith. Grace left.
She just was confused. Faith. In season 1, she came home for the funeral, right?
In season 1, no. Faith has been dead.
Okay, that was like a memorial?
Yeah, she came home. They did have... Anyway, okay, for those of you who may not watch the show, Grace, the minister, who is also the pastor's daughter, but she ministers now. At the time, she was not a minister. She had left home. She had left the church. She came back for a memorial. Actually, we're going to review that because you may be right. No, it wasn't a funeral. It wasn't a funeral. It may have been a funeral. We're going to review that. Anyway, she did come back. Her sister, Faith, is no longer on the show. She has died. We never really saw Faith. We saw a few flashbacks where they showed Faith growing up in the church. Yeah. Faith was a Sunday school teacher, but Faith was being molested by her uncle, who also held a position.
A high position.
A very high position at the church.
In the church.
It wasn't really it was one of those family secrets where she was getting molested. The members didn't know.
Well, the disturbing part is certain members knew, especially the fact that the uncle didn't not only molest Grace, but he molested several women,
little girls,
several young ladies under the age of 18, and they would either pay families off to keep quiet, or the families would mysteriously move away. They would recant their statements if they went to the police department, but it just showed the cover-ups, and Grace, I think, got sick of the nonsense and the cover-ups, and she felt that taunted what they really were trying to do, which was ministry. Now, to me, the thing about the show, even on the reviews, I've seen certain reviews, and TheRoot.com actually mentioned Grayson's sermon goes to be the most profitable service for Calvary. So she did come home, and she did actually preach a sermon when she came back in season 1.
Okay.
And the sermon itself from TheRoot.com was basically kind of noted as theology walks the line of prosperity, preaching led by Greenleaf patriarch Bishop James, who is charmingly sly in fitting the holy word into his materialistic needs. I think that's where my issue comes in with how the media portrays the church, because he's a prosperous, successful preacher, and that prosperity and that success is somewhat taunted for the reference to be made that he fits the holy word into his materialistic needs, as if that was his plot all along. Now you can develop the opinion for yourself once you watch the show, especially as the plot thickens with another church in the city of Memphis on the show. And the other church, it's a younger pastor, a very young charismatic pastor with a very vibrant ministry, and he has a past with with Bishop James, and his past comes out in episodes as well. So it does seem like Bishop James had a motive, but it could have been an accident, or it truly could have been a motive. You just gotta kind of make the decision.
You kind of have to watch
yourself.
the show, because right now you're talking about a specific occurrence on the show that happened, which is why those two pastors don't like each other. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. You do have to watch the show for that.
And this is season 1 we're referring to. Keep in mind they are on season 3.
Correct.
So you gotta catch up if you want to hear about it. But it's just all interesting to me. The show itself, the personalities from the first lady to the members and specific staff to the children, how the siblings, how the PKs interact. It's just different. And maybe it's different because it's just not all what we're accustomed to. I would say that they pulled characteristics, whoever created the show, to me, they pulled various characteristics of PKs that they may not know, or they may have heard of, or they may have seen in passing. And I do think it draws on different types of personalities. And I think every family has that, especially
I would
pre-K
say, yes,
families. I'm not saying we resemble mirror images of them, but I do think some of the characteristics, the other, they really don't, you don't see a lot about Faith to know how Faith grew up. Grace, you do see more of her personality. And her personality is she seems to be trying to find herself, which I think a lot of PKs do as well. You don't know if your place is really in the church. You don't know if your place is really elsewhere.
I'll agree with that.
And you try to find.
I will agree with that.
Who you are. You have it's interesting to see how the son relates to the father and trying to find himself as being the only son in the family.
Now, I do like how they tied that in because for some reason I do feel like a lot of ministries, or at least the ones we're familiar with or that we know personally, I guess, or through the church world, it's usually one son in the family.
You know what?
For the most part.
I know some churches. Well, that's true.
For the most part.
Yeah.
So I will say I do like how they tied that factor into the show. Just to see how he deals with other ministers in his family, because Grace is also a minister. So it's not just like, oh, he's the son, he's the one that ministers. No, Grace ministers. Charity, she's not a minister, but she sings.
Well, she's a minister of music. She's not a pulpit minister. But to me, she's fighting for attention because she feels like that's not enough or that's not good enough. She compares herself to the other two who are actual full-time ministers that have actually preached sermons. So,
right. So hopefully, if you're not a fan of the show, or if you have not seen the show, you will start to watch the show. I'm sure it's probably on Netflix or something. You can catch up because we will talk about season 2 and season 3. Season 1, I guess we touched on today, but it pretty much is just introducing you to the characters, to the plot, things of that nature. But what I do think we should do is definitely discuss each character, their flaws, and things of that nature, the sibling relationship, since we do have other siblings, even though it's just 2 of us right now. And hopefully...
Okay, Amber, seriously, why did you ask me out of all of the siblings? Like, why did you feel that we could do the podcast?
We'll save that for another show.
Interesting.
The plot thickens.
Well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We appreciate
Come
it.
back,
Tune in
watch
next
the
week
show.
with PK Social.
Thank you.